everybody, it's Allie Edwards and welcome to December Daily 2022 the official beginning. After lots of lead up, we're here, it's December. Today is actually the 2nd, so I will be coming to you each day here leading up to the 25th. Most days, every once in a while I usually take a couple days off or we have a little bit of travel or something like that. I try to let you know before that's gonna happen if there's gonna be a couple breaks between the days. But today I'm here to walk you through how I'm going to tell my first story in my album. And in case you are just joining us here, I have got a couple different videos already from how I set up my foundation pages this year related to my intention, which is to really be present during this season. So I have some foundation pages set up. I have a table of contents page set up. I've got a variety of things already completed in my album, but here we are here today for story number 1. And so I'm actually just gonna pull this out. I'm working in a 10x8 album, as you can see, and this is a 10x8 piece of paper. Now I've been thinking a lot about what do I want to do for the first story this year. And sometimes I'm doing it based on what happened on the 1st of December. Other times I'm doing it based on what's a story that I want to tell about December. And in the beginning of December, I'm always doing some looking forward, right? There are things that I'm excited about. There are things I'm looking forward to. It's kind of setting the stage for the season. And sometimes my reason why encapsulates some of that piece of the story. But this year, what I think that I want to do for this first page is I want to write a letter to myself saying, you know, what do I hope? What are my hopes? I don't know if it's going to be my hopes yet. I haven't figured it out exactly. I have a couple notes that I took when I was on a walk the other day where I was thinking about what do I want to say to myself about this December, and it might have to do with being present. It might have to do with sinking into the season. It might have to, I don't know exactly what it's going to say yet, and that's what I'm going to be doing here today. So I had a couple things set aside already. Obviously you saw the first page here. I also had one of the felt number ones, and my plan is I think I'm just gonna adhere this right on top of here. I'm thinking about where I might want this to be. And what I think I'm gonna do, at least this is what I've been thinking about for the last few days, is I think I'm going to draw lines on here and then fill those in as a letter to myself. This is something that I've done in the past. If you participate in our One Little Word project, I did this a little bit in November. I've done it on other projects in the past where I simply I'm going to draw a big rectangle and then I'm going to draw lines on here and then I'm going to use those to fill in my story. It's a little nerve-wracking. It can make you a little bit nervous. So if you love the idea of writing a letter to yourself, but you're like, no, I'm not going to handwrite it on top of a giant piece of pattern paper, then there's lots of other things that you could do, right? You can just simply write a letter to yourself that is then presented in a different format. Maybe you put it in an envelope for day 1. Maybe you take part of this and you have it open up, or it opens up on the side here and it reveals a little letter that you've written to yourself. I just kind of want to have a one page. I'm not even including a photo today. It's more of, let's get this thing started. Like I want to capture a little bit of the excitement that I feel. I just have some things to say, I think. So I always have something to say. So I think that's how we are going to embark on this one, or how I'm going to embark on this one today. So I think what I'm going to do first is I want to temporarily adhere that one on there before I draw my line. So I think I'm just going to put a little bit of rolling adhesive down before I get started here, and that can just kind of hold that in place. I'm thinking that I may add another embellishment on top of here, but I don't want to decide that part yet. Now, when you draw on paper like this, you can absolutely use a pencil first if that makes you feel more comfortable, where you would hand draw and then you can go back over in pen. I'm kind of a straight to pen person, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pen, the pen that I want to use for this, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so to draw in my lines, and then I don't know if I'm going to use this for all of my journaling yet, or if I'm going to use this one in addition to a thicker pen. This is a precision pen that we have branded for Allie Edwards, and it is basically a .03 precision pen. I I am going to stop talking now, and I'm going to go ahead and just dive into drawing my lines. All right, so I got those lines drawn, and then one of the things that happened to me in this project, as you're going to see in the rest of this video, is I tried a few different things, changed my mind a few different times, and I'm going to keep a lot of that in the video so you can kind of see some of the things that I was doing. At this point, I am cutting out one of the wreaths from the 6x8 transparency. I was thinking that maybe I would add that on in the space between December and the 1, that little kind of weird space that's inside there. And so I spent too much time. I spent a bunch of time kind of looking at that and thinking, did I want to add that on there? Did it feel like too much? You know, but I really like this little Santa wreath with the chipboard ring around the outside of it. I don't end up using here, but I will probably end up using it in the future. And so these are the things I'm leaving in just so that you can see. And by now you probably know that I don't end up using what I'm putting and what I'm showing you right now. So where I'm actually handwriting in there, I'm going to end up printing out lines on a piece of vellum and then handwriting on there. But I wanted to leave this all in so you guys could see, and you could see it as another example, right? It's just another way that you could approach this. Maybe you look at this page and you say, I could do that in a smaller version. Maybe you want to do a 3x8 that looks like this, or maybe you want to do a 6x8 that looks like this, or maybe you love the idea of writing a letter to yourself and you want to type it up, right? There's a million different ways that you can do this. Now, one of the things that I did and what I'm doing, I think I said this earlier in the video, is that I had notes on my iPhone from when I went on a walk the other day of some things that I wanted to think about to potentially include in this letter to myself. I love when I go on walks because it's an opportunity to clear my head, think about different things pop up, and so some of those things are getting added in here. As you can see, the approach that I decided to take generally was kind of a welcome to December letter. Welcome to December, and what are my hopes for myself? What do I want to focus on this month beyond just being present? It's a little bit of an extension of my reason why, but it's also just reminders to myself of how I want to experience this month. And this is one of the things that I think that this project, the gift of this project, can be helping us be more present, helping us experience the month in a way that is meaningful to each one of us. I guess that's what I want to say. So I'm using that precision pen. I'm just going ahead, I'm writing things down, I'm looking at my notes, and I'm filling in the spaces. So with my handwriting here, I'm doing a combination of uppercase and cursive. I kind of go back and forth, and I intentionally drew those lines wonky so that as I'm filling them in, I can change the height and the width often of the letters that I'm adding on there. So it ends up, this is a fun way to add your handwriting into a project without worrying about it having to be perfect, right? Because we've already made it messy. We started out making it messy, and so as you're adding in your own handwriting, it can be just as messy as well. So this was a fun part, and I do end up, you're going to see in a couple minutes here how I transition this, but I'm going to just let a little bit of music play while you guys watch me add the rest of the words in here. Okay, so after I added in the words, this is when I was thinking, what if I did this on vellum? Maybe that would be more interesting. I actually really like how it looks now that I'm looking at it right now. This is one of the things that happens too. And so that original version I think is just fine. But I cut a piece of vellum first, and I'm using a slick writer to redraw my lines. This is how this idea started. What I actually end up doing is I take this hand-drawn piece and I take a picture of it, and then I'm adding it into Illustrator, and then I'm going to print it from there. It actually ends up, it morphs a few times, but I do have the file available for you in the blog post today. You can also see that I am taking one of the digital pattern papers, and I printed that out so that I could build a new page on top of it. So what I ended up doing with the lines is I made them red before I printed them out. I'm printing them on an Epson XP 15000 printer, and you can see that I tested out a couple things here. So first I tested out just writing with the slick writer on there, and then I looked over on my desk and I saw that I have a Posca paint pen. I actually have a lot of Posca paint pen colors now. It's something that I really like using when I do collage and or art journaling. And so I wanted to see, well, what did it look like if I did the white paint pen on the vellum with the red lines. And I really like how this turned out too. I think this is really fun. Again, you can choose your own adventure as you're telling your own stories, and you don't have to do it any way, shape, or form similar to the way that I'm doing it. But hopefully seeing me kind of think through a few different ideas will give you some ideas for your own project. So as I went back in here and am rewriting, I'm essentially looking at what I wrote on that first one and just rewriting the same thing. I think I changed it just a little bit. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a little bit more space and my writing was a little bit bigger because this is a thicker paint pen. You can get thinner paint pens as well. This just happens to be the size that I have. So it dries pretty quick on there. I tried not to touch it very much. Printing on vellum is also really easy. You just want to make sure that you get inkjet vellum if you're printing on an inkjet. I really liked how this ended up turning out too. I think it was fun. It was fun to play. I always like playing with vellum, so it was fun to add in some vellum. I love the crinkle of this page. It has a really satisfying sound to me. And I liked playing around with the Posca paint pen there, along with giving myself some words of encouragement as I enter into this month. Again, doing the same thing too that I did on the other one, where I'm doing a mix of cursive handwriting and uppercase letters, just letting myself kind of go with the flow as I fit those words into the spaces there. One of the questions that I get about writing something like this is it's always, how do you know that it's going to fit? Well, part of what I do is I just stop when I get to the end, right? I know that it's coming to a close there as I'm getting towards the bottom, and I adjust my storytelling accordingly. All right, so after I got the actual story told there on the vellum, I am back to my original page with the pattern paper. Again, I did reprint that one. And I'm back with my felt number 1 and the wood veneer star, thinking, is there something else that I want to do on this page? I didn't really feel like adding a photo. It was something I considered, or some photos, but then I started thinking about all the number 1s I had. So one idea that I considered was just adding a bunch of number 1s and creating a pattern with some of the oversized and smaller number 1s that I have in my collection from over the years, right? These are in a box that I have that's just a bunch of bigger sized numbers. So this was one idea that I kind of thought about. I laid it all out, and I didn't end up going with this idea, but this might be a jumpstart for your own project or your own story that you are going to tell today. So it was fun to kind of lay them out, but then it wasn't what I wanted either. So that's how some of these things go. And it's always I think it's worth investigating, and it's worth walking down the path a little bit, especially in terms of laying things out, which is what I usually do. The next idea that I had, since I bagged that other idea, was maybe I would emboss number ones around there. So similar idea to the other one where you are adding a bunch of number ones to create a pattern on that pattern paper, an additional pattern on there. I didn't end up following through on this idea either, but I wanted to leave it in here and be able to mention it as an idea for people who might be looking at, adding ones on there, and you can easily do that with Versamark and embossing powder is kind of what I was thinking about doing. So once I decided that I wasn't going to do either one of those things, I was looking at stars in my stash, and I have these little gold sequin stars that I've had forever. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 of them onto my vellum here. I do end up adding brads, you'll see at the very end of the video. I do 3 of them. The paint pen, that's a Martha Stewart paint pen, and I'm not sure if they still make those. I've had it forever. Now they probably still do, but that's what I'm using here. And like I said, the next day I came back because I actually did this one over a course of a couple days leading up to today started, and you've seen different sweaters on my arms there. But yeah, anyway, once I come back to it, I've decided that brads needed to be there. So you're going to hear me talk a little bit about that in just a minute here. Okay, my friends, so after a whole lot of back and forth, I think I am ending with the vellum with the little stars. Actually, that one's kind of not glued on there. I might end up putting the brads in there too on those just to keep them in there. I think I'm probably going to do that. And then I'm actually going to adhere this down. I'm deciding, I'm going to keep this plain. I'm going to keep it plain. I'm just going to keep it super simple. This is story 1. This is going to be it. Now, just to review, this is another option, right? So if you're thinking of a different way to do it, maybe you don't want to print on vellum or draw on the vellum or do any of that kind of stuff, you could always do it this way if you wanted to write a letter to yourself, or you could do it in some other way entirely, right? Take the concept of writing a letter or starting the month off with a letter to yourself and translate it into a way that works in your own project. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of red line tape. Red line tape is what I use to adhere the wood veneer piece onto the number 1. I'm just going to cut up a little bit more of this and put it on the back of the 1 and adhere it down. I considered, besides all of the things that you saw me, I considered maybe adding a couple circle photos on here, but I think in the end, I think I'm gonna like this just as a starting place, and then tomorrow I'm definitely going to be probably including a big photo there. Just like, I think the simplicity is what I really want. I am going to also punch the holes and add some brads here. You'll be able to see the feet in the back, which I'm totally fine with, but let's get some of these little darker ones. It just holds it in place a little bit more. I like having a little bit of embellishment on here, but that'll be good enough. Yeah, you can kind of see it on the back, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to finish up with that for today. Actually, we'll just do all 3 of them, and then I'll show you what it looks like in my album. Okay, I feel a little bit better about those. I think they're going to stick better than just the glue. Okay, so pulling the album over, I'll go ahead and add this directly in there. Do a quick little look ahead at tomorrow too. Already lots of stuff in here from this last month of a few different projects. I'm also going to write my story on here. I'm going to show you that in just a second. So tomorrow is going to be using a full page that I stamped. So I'm kind of thinking about what my story will be for tomorrow, but this is where I'm at for today. Lots of lines. We'll just do a quick little flip through of what I have here so far. So I'm going to write on my table of contents there, and then this will be just December 1. I kind of love it like that. And then we'll go into day 2, and it'll be photo here or photo here, most likely. All right, so I'm going to pull out my table of contents, and I'm going to write just letter to myself. That's what I'm going to add on here. So I'm going to pick a pen. You could also stamp on there with maybe a small alpha stamp set. I wonder if I have one that's small enough. I might look and see what I have for that. So as you saw at the beginning of this video, I did find an alpha stamp set. This is a lowercase typewriter stamp set. I will see if we still have this available. We had at some point in time, obviously super sped up. I don't know if I'm going to stamp on these every day or if maybe I'll handwrite some. I'm going to decide as I go along, but I liked starting out with that one in my album. All right, so that is a look at story number 1 in my December Daily for 2022. I will be here most days in December sharing ideas and inspiration with you for documenting your own stories this year in your December Daily project. I'm looking forward to seeing what you are creating this year too, so make sure to tag, you can tag December Daily on Instagram, you can join our Facebook group, lots of different places where you can see other ideas and inspiration this year.